Okay, so my name's Helen Lisowski, and I'm going to be talking to you today about Agile Leadership in 5 not-so-easy steps. We'll go ahead. Okay, so lots and lots of people will have heard of these Agile transformations. How many people here are part or have been part of something called an Agile transformation? Yeah, me too. One of the problems with anything like an Agile transformation is getting everybody on board. And this is where the leadership stuff comes from. Now, transformation, I am not the first person to say this, and I am certainly not going to be the most eloquent either, but the word transformation is probably not a great word. I always think of like a butterfly. You transformed and you're done. And this is one of the fundamental problems of an Agile transformation is if you're doing it right, it shouldn't be done. So I prefer to use a term called releasing agility. And it's a hat tip to my friend Rob Lambert, who he and I came up with this term many years ago. This idea that really it's a little bit more like this continuous stream, like water being released from a dam. Your company should be getting progressively more agile over time rather than transformed and finished. And the Agile leadership kind of has that at our heart of it. So, our 5 steps of Agile leadership. We're going to break with tradition. I'm giving you all the answers up front. There is no big reveal. This is it. This is the talk. I'm going to take you through these. We're going to talk about developing a clear vision and sharing it. We're going to talk about building a strategy, having the right people in the right places, and bringing in Agile behaviors, tools, techniques, and then building continuous improvement into your culture. So, these are the 5 steps for releasing agility, and it doesn't matter if you're talking at a team level, at a department level, or at a company level. The context is slightly different, but overall the steps are pretty much the same, and they're in this order for a reason, which we'll go into. I am going to draw your attention to bring in agile behaviors, tools, techniques, and all the rest of it is number 4 out of 5. Some of you might be quite surprised to find that's relatively far down the list. And I'm hoping by the end of this you'll agree with me as to why that is the case. So, let's talk about step 1. Develop a clear vision and share it. Now, I'm hoping that for this talk, you have a clear idea of now what we're going to do. I have just shared my vision with you. And one of the important things about sharing a vision is that if I share it and you do not hear it, internalize it and understand it, I did not share it. So the sharing part is done by the listener, not by the person doing the telling. So I'm hoping that it's landed, but I have no control over that. All I can keep doing is making sure that I'm talking about it, pushing that idea forward. So, I've told you about the steps we'll go through. The thing about a vision is it's the end state. The thing is it might not be your final state because we were talking about continuous improvement. So what I like to think of it is, imagine you're going on a lovely walk or a road trip, and this is the cliff-top view that you are sharing. You are telling people about that view and how amazing it is. Now, it might be that you're going to do the next cliff-top view and there's another great view further along, but for now, this is the end point that we're aiming for. It's allowed to change. If it changes, you have to reshare it. My friend Rob, that I mentioned earlier, he talks about this as being a painted picture. You're basically giving somebody something in their mind that's a painted picture of what your future is going to entail. It's not about how we get there. Okay, so that's the vision. Now, this is where the fun bit comes in, because I know what the Wi-Fi's like here, and I've just checked, and it is awful. If you can go onto menti.com on your phones, there is some interaction. Now, it doesn't matter if you can't get onto your phones. It's not vitally important, and I was really hoping you'd see the results as we go along, but it would mean me flicking out of the presentation and into the internet and back again. So what I'll do is I'll share all the answers with you at the end. But if you can log on to menti.com and you can put that number in, it will allow you to partake in some very silly data gathering, crowdsourced information. It's anonymous, and I'm not gathering data here for me. I promise, that's not the purpose. It's just about seeing from a crowdsourced point of view what your situation is compared to what everybody else's situation is. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do this. So, the question for those of you who aren't joining in are, do you know the current vision for your company or for the company that you're currently working for? And I can tell lots of people have voted already. So I will show you the results in a little while. The questions are, so do you know the current vision for the company you're working for? Yes, it's my company. Of course I know the vision. It's my company, but no, I don't actually probably have a vision. Yes, it's clear and inspiring. Vaguely. Not really. I rather suspect there isn't one. So I'm hoping to go through across those. So, step 2, building a strategy. Strategy is such a cool buzzword. Lots and lots of people use it. Sometimes people even use it correctly. Not always. So, your strategy is a little bit like that road trip. The points between your journey between where you are now and where you want to be on your vision. Now, strategy gets you to your vision, but there are often little diversions along the way. Emergencies happen. We have these little eddies in real life where we have to deal with something. This is normal. This requires tactical solutions rather than the strategy point of view. Now, it's unavoidable to have to do tactical little pieces of work every now and again. But I've worked for companies, I've known companies who spend so much time in their tactical world that they can't spend any time on their strategy, which gives you no opportunity to move towards your vision, which means you are in a massively reactive business, not moving, setting the tone, making yourself a real visionary and a market leader or whatever it is. What you're doing is constantly reacting to what your few customers, usually few customers, have and want, and you're either your vision is not aligned with what your business is, or you've got some customers who have far too much power for here. So tactical solutions are great and they're really necessary, but they should not be diverting you very often from your strategy. Your strategy is taking you towards your vision, and your vision is there because that's what we should be going for. That's your North Star. So establishing where we are right now in order to build our little roadmap requires some honesty, real honesty. We need to not be better or paint that picture better or worse than it really is. So you probably don't want the marketing team telling you where you are right now, because they're going to tell you it's awesome. And you possibly don't want your internal auditors telling you where you are right now, because probably that's a little more dire than it needs to be. So what you're looking is that real realism, because if you know where you are, it's absolutely fundamental to getting to your vision and setting that strategy. The other thing, because I've done this before, the other thing you need to do is when you're setting that strategy, you're looking for touch points. If you were to describe a journey to somebody, you're looking for like 4, 5, 6 touch points on the way that will help somebody know that they're going in the right direction. It's just to say, you'll see, I used to direct myself via pubs. You'll see, you know, the King's Arms on the right, further on up is, I don't know, the Phoenix Tail, whatever it would be. Those steps are crucial, but the trick is not to get into too much detail. If you're setting yourself a strategy and you've got far too much detail, you're building out, you're removing your ability to be flexible, and you're mandating how it is your staff work rather than just what it is that they're going to be delivering. So you want people who are capable of following these waypoints without needing massive direction all the time. The more detail you put in, the more indecipherable your roadmap becomes, your strategy becomes, and it sounds really counterintuitive. If you have really clear vision and a small number of really smart people working in quite a disciplined way, you may not need an explicit strategy. And what I've just described to you is where most startups start. They start with a handful of people, one founder with a really clear strategy, really clear vision. You don't need the strategy because your strategy is very short term, because your vision is very short term. We need to build this thing and this thing because that's what we're aiming to do. So startups is that one time when the strategy, the bigger you are, perhaps the more strategy that you need. Okay. Look, we're 5-10 minutes in and we're already on step 3. This is going to go breeze, isn't it? Step 3, look around you. Are these the people to get it done? You are not just thinking about your team, really, or the people that you manage, or the people that you're responsible for, or the people that you're answerable to. What about the CEO? Do you have confidence that they actually know what it is that they need to be doing? Are they doing it? Because, you know, there's a reason Glassdoor says how much confidence you have in the CEO. That's a really important metric for a company. Are these the people who will do what needs to be done? Are you the person who's going to do what needs to be done here? Are you leading by example with your behaviors and your attitudes? Is this what your team, your peers are going to follow? Is this what your direct reports are going to follow? They're going to follow your leadership. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to do another Menti right now. Overall, as a percentage, I think it's as a percentage, how many of the people around you are the ones you'd have chosen to deliver what's got to be done? Are these the people? On 1 second, it probably hasn't moved on, has it? There you go. This is quite simple. This is a yes, I have faith, no, I don't have faith, or I rather suspect, oh look, my apologies. There are 2 Mentis for the first bit. I'd forgot that. So the first, I've just messed this all up completely, haven't I? So the first bit I was asking about your company, and there was a second question to this, which is, do you know how your current company, how your current project contributes into your company vision? And that's what most people are answering. And what's really, really cool is when you see the answers to this, most people are saying yes. And that's really good, because if you're delivering work that you know delivers into your company vision, that's super cool. And you can switch backwards and forwards to these. But this next one was, how much do you think the people around you are the people to get this done? Are they the people that you would choose if you were building your own company? Are these the people that you would choose to do the work that needs to be done? Okay, so whilst you're doing that, if the answer is yes, great, that's brilliant, that's exactly what you want. But if the answer is no, these aren't necessarily the people to get it done, you've really kind of only got 2 choices. Now, if people are enjoying the work they're doing, they love what they do, they will be delivering great work, because that's just the nature of human beings. People unhappy with the work they've been asked to do, or the way in which they've been asked to do that work, won't be doing their best work. You just can't make people work well when they're not happy. But this doesn't have to be a negative thing. So we can deal with this one of 2 ways. The first way is to redeploy your people, and this is what most managers, most leaders would try and do, which is find out what is it that any particular person loves doing. How can we find a way to find them something in the company, in the team, in a different department that suits them much better for the way in which they want to work? This is not about demotion or promotion, promoting people sideways or any of this. This is about helping people be happy in the work that they want to do. Finding out what they really love shouldn't be a surprise for a good manager. We should be having these conversations with people all the time. Like I was saying before, though, it's difficult. Not everybody is trained. Not everybody has had decent training. I can do a shout out here to a company, American company called Manager Tools, and they will give you excellent podcasts, written stuff, all for free. They also do consulting, obviously. But if some of their stuff is quite corporate, but actually there's really very little, very bad, There's very little very bad information in there. Most of everything that they say is really, really good. The other option, if you can't redeploy your people, is this one. It's having a difficult conversation. We should be actively managing performance if you are a manager of any staff at all, helping them find a role they love. But I've just covered that. Sometimes I've had developers who don't enjoy software development. And one chap particularly, I believe in having careful, kind, but candid conversations with people. He did not enjoy software development. He was a good developer. He wasn't great, but that's because his heart and soul wasn't in it, but he was good. I could have left him, and he'd have been a software developer forever, and he'd never have really loved it. He'd have lived for the weekend, which is fine, but it's a sucky life if you know somebody's in that position. So we had a careful, kind, and candid conversation about what he really wanted to do. And now he's an air traffic controller, which is lovely, and that was great. Not everybody is going to feel this is a nice thing to do. I was not his line manager at the time. Doing this as a line manager is ironically a little bit easier because you're already primed to do this. You're already in that position. But you can do this as a peer. You can just have this conversation with somebody. You don't have to say, you're rubbish. What you can say is what is it you'd do if you could do anything? And why are you not doing that? What's stopping you doing that? Because those questions, just said out loud, sometimes can be really powerful. So he's not the only example. There are others, but bless him, he's the one who let me use it. So step 4 is bring in all the agileness, which is lovely. This is where we would bring in all our tools and our processes and our techniques and our behaviors. And I'm going to deviate a little bit here from our strategy into a little technical, tactical eddy here, because it's a better way. I want to take this tactical detour because it's a better way of me explaining why Agile practices are so late in the process, in these 5 steps. Because I don't think you will understand it properly, not internalize it. I won't have shared it fully if I don't explain it to you in a way that you kind of go, oh, okay. So we all belong to a series of interconnecting teams. So it might be that our teams are based on who we report to. So we all have the same line manager, so therefore we are kind of like a team. It might be to do with the specialism. We're all Scrum Masters, so we have a community of practice. So that's how we belong to that team. And those teams intersect. It might be the work we're assigned to. We might all be assigned to Capricorn project. In some companies, you might also be assigned to the Gemini project, and those teams might not actually intersect at all. But we also belong to teams that relate to our home life. So I'm part of Team Lisowski. It's a very broad team, and not everybody is a Lisowski who's in it, which is quite strange. But we don't, my point I'm trying to make here is that we don't belong to just one thing. We can't put ourselves into just one bucket and say this is the thing that we do. And we play different roles. So here's a load of job titles. It's not an exhaustive list, obviously, but they're really obvious job titles. And what I want to do is sort of say on any team, whether that's your home team, Team Lisowski, or whether that's your team of Scrum Masters, or whether that's your team of board members, or whatever team you are on, I think there are only 3 roles, and you play those 3 roles. So there's a vision holder, an enabler, and a contributor. Now, I may have not got this completely right, but to me, you're one of those 3 things. And I think this would be a reasonably sensible way of divvying up those kind of roles with the product titles, with the job titles that we've got. So CEO is a vision holder, or product owner is a vision holder. This is not, I hope, rocket science or even particularly controversial. But I want to dig a little bit deeper than that. So let's talk about what these roles actually do. So the vision holder Sometimes they're the person who sets that destination. Sometimes they're just the person at the helm steering the ship in that direction. It is not a rank. It is not a hierarchical place. An enabler is anybody who, you're working with strategy, it says up there, but it's also a person who is working to make a contributor's life more easy. So in Team Lisowski, for example, when my daughter empties the dishwasher, ready for me to make dinner and stick all the dirty pans in it, she is enabling me to make dinner, and that is our goal. I'm the vision holder for the dinner goal. And I'm also a contributor into that, but she is an enabler for that. When you are using the vision as your North Star and you're helping everybody work towards it, you're an enabler. And a contributor. So contributors deliver, and their other role, which is often missed, is they raise risks early. If you're a contributor, you know when you can see a potential risk. Raising it early, super important, often missed. So if we were thinking hierarchically, this is where everybody would think is the bottom of the pile. And it's just not like that. It's foolish to think like that, actually. Really, the contributors are the customers of the vision holder and the enablers, because this is where all the value is created. So a vision holder and an enabler can add value to contributors, but without a contributor, you cannot add any value because you've got nothing. So really what we need to do is work holistically. Now, I'm going to see if we can do this again. So which roles can you identify for yourself in your daily life of those? So enabler, contributor, vision holder. Okay, so whilst you're doing all of that, it's a bit of a weird deviation. Does it already feel like we were talking about these 5 steps and now we've deviated? So we deviated onto roles because of the real world, okay? I don't want to just talk about theory. Now, I first need to do a hat tip to Klaus Leopold. This is his slide. It's my photo. I took the photo, okay? But all the brains behind it is him. Now, we've talked about step 4 being about introducing practices and tools. And the problem is that we tend to jump straight in there for practices and tools. Every IT department in the world will bring in agile practices, woohoo! And we get better because we know that they work. You implement agile practices in a company that's not seen anything like this, and you can make a massive difference really quickly. But there's a ceiling, and you can't break that past that ceiling. And that is because of this slide. Your agile practices are pinned in place by every other system and process around it. So you cannot possibly implement the Spotify model or the Netflix model if you are just implementing it in IT. You can only get partial success, and the bigger your company and the less tech-focused your company, the smaller that success will be. So, what worked for Spotify and Netflix really just worked for a specific group of people at a specific point in time, solving a very specific set of problems. You aren't that specific set of people, and you are at a different point in time. The chances of your problems being exactly the same as theirs are very small. So you have to understand what made the Spotify model work for them, what made the Netflix model work for them. And I would challenge you to ask yourself, when somebody next says, Netflix, we're going for the Netflix model, ask them, how are you implementing the Netflix model in finance? Because if you don't know and you have no plans, you aren't doing that. You're taking one tiny piece of the company and you're localizing, you're optimizing locally. And if you optimize locally, you end up with this, which is really agile in one tiny place, but the rest of it is exactly as it always has been. So, that's why Agile practices and tools are at number 4. Because if you don't know your vision, and you haven't got a strategy, and you haven't got the right people in place to take the whole business forward, then it doesn't matter about stand-ups and iterations and information radiators visualizing the work. Because although we know those things are super important and we know that they work, they are not as important or as effective if you haven't got the rest of it sorted out. If you've got a group of people who are unhappy in what they're doing, they don't really know why they're doing it, you can get them to do stand-ups, but you've built yourself a cargo cult. So, in fact, Kevlin said this morning. He used a slightly different analogy, but it's like having the fastest yacht on the ocean with the most skilled captain, and it's completely wasted if you don't know your destination or you can't navigate effectively. You need to know your destination with your vision. You need to be able to navigate really well, have a strategy. Bringing in agile practices, tools, coaches, experts is immensely valuable. It really is, or we wouldn't all be here knowing how well it works. It's just not where you start. So, this is a great example of what happens when a vision isn't shared. It's not shared across the whole organization. And the work is not related directly to the vision. So it's only related to the small piece that we work on in IT, perhaps, in this direction. And it shows what happens when you optimize locally and you don't think about the whole thing as a whole. So, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. You look at that picture and you go, holy crap, I couldn't fix that in my organization. You might also think, isn't that the director's job? And actually the answer is yes, it is. But I want to let you into a little secret here. Lots and lots of directors have learned on the job. Very few have the luxury of anything other than self-education. And sometimes you get a director, or several directors, who are early on in their learning. And you know what? That's okay. If it was any other role, we'd be much more forgiving. I know for myself, this was a bit of an epiphany. Oh my God, they're not awesome because they didn't know how to be awesome. They don't know what it means to be a great director. They've been a director for 5 minutes. So, what I would suggest is, it's difficult when you are a Scrum Master in a 7,000 person organization to influence a director, even if you get FaceTime with them. And right now, that's really hard, full stop. But what I would do is say, find ways of building a relationship with the director. It's not necessarily comfortable. I, for one, really hate it. But it's not just the directors, all your superiors. Ask questions about the strategy, the way forward. Help them think. Try really hard not to say, you're rubbish, again. People not very well responding to that. But honestly, they feel just as hemmed in to their own portion of the business as you do. Reaching out and giving them somebody that they can ask an opinion of in a safe way because you're not going to judge them. What they want to do is come to you and say, hey, if we were to do this, what do you think people would think? Why do we not do this? Somebody said that we should be doing this. Those questions, if they can go and ask somebody on the floor, rather than the person who's sat at the board table with them who's not going to really know, that's going to be much better. What you're looking to do is give them a route into the business, into the hearts and minds of the business. Think, how can I enable? Where can I influence? And your influence does not have to be because you are a manager. Your influence can easily be because you were the person asking questions, because you were the one just not asking, why the hell have we done this, but how did we get to this state? What made us decide to do this instead of that? The other thing I would suggest is, the bigger the company, the more I would say to you, don't expect dramatic, sudden, overnight change, because culture change takes time. Which brings us on to step 5, continuous improvement as a culture. So, culture is built on repeated behavior, stuff we do over and over again. It is not words on a document. It doesn't matter if you've written it down in the handbook that this is our culture. This is not our culture unless that is how the directors behave and that is how the cleaner behaves. Everybody has to behave in that way or it's not a culture. Your culture is whatever it is that you do. And I would also argue it is probably the lowest level of behavior that you will tolerate as a company. Once an undesirable culture is in place, it's the devil's own job to shift it. Huge effort to change it. And because it's like any other bad habit. Anybody here ever given up smoking, chocolate, beer, whatever? It's really hard if you have a habit to change that behavior. And it's even more when you're trying to change lots of people's behavior. And this is, in fact, why Uber and most recently Blizzard have ditched very high-ranking people who they feel, potentially, are the root cause of their toxic behaviors. The truth is this is a big effort trying to clean house to create a big enough crisis to help shift behavior. And I could talk for hours on this, so I'm going to try very hard to step slightly to the side now. It's a culture reset. It's an effort at a culture reset. When you're looking at change, the sooner the better. Leaving bad behavior in place to just see if it'll get better, maybe it's never going to get better. And without any intervention, it will just get worse. It is cheapest, easiest to intervene really early with a gentle, tiny nudge than it is. The longer you leave it, the harder it gets. Continuous improvement needs to be built in as a culture, because if we don't build in this continuous inspect and adapt, think about it, what have we learned, how could we be better, you are genuinely setting yourself up for an agile transformation, which sounds like it ought to be a good thing. You're setting yourself up for this one and done, and we're finished. Unless you build continuous improvement into your process, your transformation will stop dead in the water once you've done all the things on your little tiny roadmap. Your little tiny roadmap should only be until a certain point of time. You should be then building your next vision with your next strategy. You should be continuously improving as part of your culture. So this is the last Menti. Have a go on this one. Hang on, I have to move you on. So this one is, imagine you're the CEO of your own brand new company. It's slightly more trivial, this one. How confident are you now about each of those following 5 steps? And I've listed them out. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to answer that one. I will show you the results, I promise. I'll leave enough time at the end. Internet willing. Okay. So, those are our 5 steps of Agile leadership. Not so easy steps. What I really want you to do is see if you can see through these to the heart of Agile that's in these steps. Know what you're building. That doesn't matter whether you're CEO of a company or you are a 7-person Scrum team. It doesn't matter. Know what you're building. Know what is essential and prioritize accordingly. What do you need tomorrow? What do you need in a week? What do you need in a month? What are your waypoints? Build your strategy. Build a team to get it done. Do you have the right skills in place? If you're writing in C#, or in my case, if you're writing in Clojure, do you have Clojure developers? If anyone's a Clojure developer looking to recruit, come to see me. Build in agile behaviors. This is really important, and this is the bit that we normally do. And I'm not going to talk to you guys here because you guys all know this really makes differences. And then build continuous improvements into your culture. Inspect and adapt. Make sure that we're doing this. This is nothing more than what we do at every single team level. And as you see, this leadership stuff isn't complicated. It's just difficult. But we can do difficult things. Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to see if I can switch us across. Nothing like being brave, is there? Okay, so, why can I not get this? All right. This is the bit I hadn't checked with. So, do you know the current vision for your company? Apparently, vaguely is overwhelmingly the largest answer. I suspect vaguely probably means it exists, but it hasn't been shared. Do you know how your current project contributes to the vision? Yes. But see, this worries me, because if you don't know what the vision is, how do you know so overwhelmingly that you're contributing to it? What I think you mean there is, yes, I know it's really important, and yes, I know that it contributes to the business, but you don't know if that's the same value as your company's got. Okay. How confident are you that your current people are the team to get it done? 6.3. That's okay. I would hope for that, or even slightly higher at an Agile conference. We're kind of trying to lead the way here. Which roles can you identify for yourself in daily life? I'm really pleased that so many people can find themselves doing all three roles, because actually that's the point. We need to enable, we need to be vision holders, and we need to contribute. And depending on not even the team you're in, depending on the day and the task, your roles should change. Understanding what role you need to be fulfilling at any one time and doing that job is possibly the single most important thing you can do every day. So imagining that you're the CEO of your brand new company, how confident are you about setting a clear vision? Yes, awesome, 8.5. Devising a clear strategy to reach your vision, again, good. Getting the right people in place. Building an agile culture throughout your business, not just in IT. And nurturing a continuous improvement culture for the future. So those are nice and high. I should have done one before and after. I wish I'd done that now. And that's just a holding slide that was to remind me it was the end. So, difficult is not bad, difficult is not impossible, difficult is just difficult. And we can do difficult things because we do it every day. Okay, thank you very much.